Chapter 2. When Lycell reached the bottom of the stairs, he took hold of Damon's shoulder, pressing his fingers down into it. Damon flinched, and Lycell turned him in the direction of the kitchen. "Now tell me, are they dead?" Damon paused and stopped walking, and stood at the kitchen door before heading for the garage. "Yes, Father." "You don't have to say any more. Is Thorn injured in any way?" "I don't think so, but he's badly bruised like I am. On my shoulder." He glanced at Lycell's fingers, and Lycell released him. The lion cubs were terrifying in the way they fought. They surprised us. We weren't prepared for close quarters. We didn't even know we were being stalked. We thought it was just a case of them being angry because we stole their girls. "We have to have a talk about shifters, especially lion shifters," Lycell said to Damon. They strode together in the direction of the detached garage, which held a collection of their trucks, cars, and motorcycles. "You did your best and you prevailed. That's all that's important. You were able to walk away from the fight." Lycell glanced at Damon with a closed smile, a smile that said, "Well done, my son. Now don't tell your mother." "I won't." They entered Lycell's Ford truck and took off for town. With the new road leading straight into Samsaville, they arrived at Hunter's apartment in 10 minutes. The apartment was one of a line of newly built townhomes with all modern furniture and appliances for the doctors and shifters who could afford the expensive homes. Hunter's twin brother, Devin, had supervised the construction and inexpensive apartments for humans who couldn't meet the high price point, where he financed them himself. He built many apartments on their vast land for the greater populations of humans and shifters alike, who couldn't afford the luxury of the Samsa villas. Because of this, the town of Samsaville was growing in leaps and bounds, which could be both bad and good. Lycell parked the truck in one of the open garage stalls. Damon pointed to Hunter's motorcycle. "Hunter's here," Damon said, climbing out of the Ford. Lycell stepped down and strode over to the bike and placed his hand on the motor. It was warm. They turned, striding to the rear of the home, opened a gate and entered through the back. "Hunter arrived after we had taken down the second cub," Damon said. They hurried up to the back door, after crossing the patio of the 2-story town home. Lycell opened the wooden door without a problem. When they walked in, Hunter and Thorn were picking up the broken lamps and chairs and throwing them in a pile, but they couldn't clean up the blood on the walls and floors quick enough. "You would think that one of you would lock that door. Where are they?" Lycell said, as a wrinkled forehead and a pair of narrowed dark eyes greeted Hunter and Thorn. "In the bedroom in the back," Thorn said. Hunter just looked at Lycell. Hunter had on a pair of worn jeans, which had been ripped. His leather jacket was thrown over a sofa, along with a white t-shirt covered with blood. Thorn stood wide-eyed gazing at his father, his muscled chest bare except for the small gold medallion around his neck that had been given to him and his 5 brothers by his mother, Adrian. He wore a pair of close-fitting black jeans covered in blood. The jeans outlined his long, massive muscular legs. Both Thorn and Damon were the picture of their father, Lycell. "Did you have time to shift?" Lycell said, staring at Thorn. He knew the answer when he asked the question. Hunter shook his head no. "Then you are lucky to be alive." "Both of you," Lycell said with a serious tone, looking at Thorn and Damon. He made a quick turn. "When did you get here, Hunter?" "After it was over, and they were wondering what to do." "The bodies are in the far bedroom," Hunter answered Lycell, then turned to show him. "Don't bother. I can follow the trail of blood," Lycell added. Nevertheless, Hunter followed after him. Lycell entered the room and looked at the 2 lifeless young lion shifters. They were braced against a cabinet, their eyes open, still showing their teeth and claws. "I know these 2. They aren't yearlings. I hate to break the news, but if they were full grown, there would have been another outcome. Lycell said, bending down to examine their paws, which were enormous considering that they were still undeveloped. His finger traced the cub's lips, and he took a better look at their teeth. "There is a reason they call them the king of the jungle," he said with a groan. "There aren't but one lion shifter that I know of in these parts, and these are his sons. I suspect there are more coming soon. I have to contact Wilder and Drayton, and your brothers," Lycell said with a worried glance as he walked over to confirm his suspicions. "I know who their father is. I had the opportunity to meet him in San Francisco. He's the one who made threats against our pack and family," Hunter said. "They aren't empty threats," Lycell said, his eyebrows meeting. Lycell gave Hunter a worried glance and then said, "Help me get them into the tub." Hunter reached for them, and to Lycell's astonishment, he lifted both of them, then brought them into the bathroom and dropped them in the small pool-sized tub. "Now what next?" Lycell mumbled, walking with Hunter back into the living room to join Damon and Thorne. He stood watching Damon and Thorne. They instinctively knew what would follow. Lycell's bark was worse than his bite. "You had no right to pick up girls at that club. Where is your common sense? I promised Robert and Mina that my sons were good enough to marry their daughters, but instead you're fucking around with any female shifter that will suck your dick. For all your trouble, did you at least get your dick sucked?" "We took them in the back of the club, and they were giving us a blowjob, but one of the girls said that they would be more comfortable at Hunter's apartment," Thorne said. "Didn't it occur to you that they shouldn't know Hunter?" "We were drunk, Father. You said that a werewolf should get out his frustrations during the full moon, especially if we were planning on getting married. You were notorious in this town with the females and were females," Thorne said with a playful breezy voice. "This is not about me, and this was before I met your mother." Lycell's disapproving eyes wavered between Damon and Thorne. "We have a problem here. Those weren't just any lion shifters. We have kept out of his way, because it's hard to defeat a lion shifter, and here you have managed to kill 2 of his sons." Lycell turned to Hunter, who was sitting looking out. "Where is that female, Hunter? You know the one. The one you should have married by now." "Haley. That's the one. I think she's—" "You think? It's because of her that they came. Do you think when the lion shifter threatened our pack that it would stop there, because they didn't come when you thought they would? You should have given her to him." Lycell's voice rose and deepened with anger. "You didn't want her. You're still crying about Devon marrying and impregnating Katie. Katie was mine first. I saw her first and I made love to her first. It was my right to have her." Hunter's voice was bold and heated, his blue eyes taking on a fiery glow. "Do you see what I mean? After all these months, you still want Katie even though she's pregnant with your brother's pups, and you don't want that young girl Haley. I imagine she was a virgin when you took her. What could be better than a virgin? A human virgin at that." Hunter squirmed, uneasy with Lycell's words, but out of respect he didn't say anything. What could he say? It was all the truth. He had to hear it again, and in that crude way that Lycell had for expressing himself, which struck a chord with him. "You can't have them both, son. You either agree to share Katie and give up Haley, because I heard from your mother that she won't have you, because of your non-commitment to her. Just what are you waiting for?" Hunter stood, then paced around the room with his hands tucked firmly in his pockets. "You look like your father when he couldn't decide what to do," Lycell said. "I'm not like my father. My father said I was more like you." Lycell didn't expect that. "Then, if you are like me, then make up your mind and be done with it. When I had to choose between your mother and all the women and were females that were begging me to marry them, fuck them, or just remain a bachelor, I made my choice. I chose her and now I am happy and I have 6 sons, but 2 of them are jackasses, he emphasized before turning and smiling at Thorne and Damon. I need to go. I promised Haley that I would protect her. Go. My sons will take care of this mess. Thorne and Damon glanced wearily at Lycell. Chapter 3. Hunter found himself in a dilemma once more. His uncertainty about Haley had caused her to resent him. She had refused his sexual advances and to live with him. She chose instead to be anywhere but in his presence. She didn't want to see him one more day where she had to look at his handsome face and had to be reminded that he still loved Katie, that he could consider mating with her and sharing her with Devon, something he had said he would never do. Rejection was what Hunter had become used to, but not by Haley. She was the human who had professed her love for him. She said that she wanted him above all else, but then she had shocked him by declaring that anything and anyone was better than spending her life chasing and wanting someone who wanted another. He had been forced to send her back to school at her request. He had hoped that she would stay and live with him where he could protect her fully, but she had decided against it. All she wants to do is make me pay for my wavering and uncertainty about her. She just wants to make me miserable, his mind told him. And miserable he was since she wasn't with him, whispering in his ear as he took her small body, as her tight muscles closed in on his manhood, bringing him to orgasm quickly and often during the night of the full moon. When he had returned to Samsaville, he wanted to call on his brother Devon. Hunter needed to check to see if he had gotten Katie out of his system. He pondered whether he should waste his time in doing this, because he knew the truth. As he neared their estate, his legs shook and he became nervous. That wasn't something he did often. He could control his emotions. He did that well enough with Haley, but Haley was different. As much as he desired Haley, she wasn't his first love. Once again, he realized that he couldn't face Katie. He couldn't let his brother see the jealousy welling and simmering inside of him, so he rode his motorcycle past the house, past the hospital, past the forest, then up the highway and on to San Francisco. Allowing Damon and Thorne to party at his apartment had been a mistake. There was no way he would go back there. He would sooner or later have to talk to Devon about purchasing another apartment, because he wanted to keep a residence in Samsaville. After all, Samsaville was his home, and that was where his family and pack lived, and it was where Katie was. Tiredness didn't affect him like most men. He wasn't a man. He was more a werewolf with the strength of many men. He had a sexual nature to match that burned tirelessly, and it hadn't been satisfied since Haley had left him. It was good that she had left, as Hunter couldn't be true to her. She deserved someone that would fawn over her, and that wasn't Hunter. Not like someone your own age, he remembered reminding her when he dropped her off in her dorm room. Haley had looked at him and said, "You'll be sorry one day that you chose Katie over me." That thought rang through his mind. He couldn't imagine that it would affect him, one way or the other. He couldn't see the forest for the trees, and in Haley's case, he couldn't see Haley and her devotion and love for him, because he was looking back and wanting more than he was willing to give to Haley. Thinking Haley would be safe, and he would be nearby, he found another home where he felt the lion shifter couldn't breach. It was in a section of San Francisco, where new high-rise buildings were being built every day, and they provided concentrated security throughout the buildings. After talking to the realtor, Hunter sold the first house on the beach, and bought a newly built building, taking the penthouse for himself. This time he wouldn't be alone if, or when, the lion shifter came for Haley. He hired one of Lycell's sons to run his company if he had to leave for council meetings with his father. Lycell's first son, Tracker, would share the apartment with him. Tracker remained with Hunter while the others went off to Stanford, where they were guaranteed jobs in research for Hunter's tech companies and resource development for the environment once they graduated. Tracker was the bad boy of the pack of Lycell's sons. His father tried to keep him reined in, but even as a pup he would steal away during the night and hunt large animals, because he was the most powerful of all the sons. He was constantly getting into trouble in school. Although he had a calm nature, he didn't like to see others being bullied, and he would fight to protect them. Adrian had been against sending Tracker to school because she wanted to homeschool him, but Lycell said Adrian had enough to do and took over the nurturing of his 6 sons. However, Adrian went behind Lycell's back and asked Hunter to take him under his wing. Zooming down the highway to his apartment in San Francisco, Hunter had time to think. There was nothing like a long ride in the fresh air to clear his mind. He would ask Haley to marry him. That's what she wanted, and this time he would prove to her that he had changed. He had given up the notion that he could ever be comfortable with sharing Katie. Finally he arrived and sped into the underground garage. Coming to a stop at the entrance to the building, he hopped off the motorcycle, leaving the bike where a waiting valet eagerly took and parked it for him. A private elevator and entrance to the penthouse ensured that he wouldn't be surprised by anyone seeking to harm him, especially shifters. Entering the elevator, his eyes took a quick look around at the overhead cameras. He relaxed. When the door of the elevator opened, his sharp hearing picked up the sound of soft music and a smell of steak cooking. How he wished for a hunt with his father and the smell of fresh-caught deer meat or salmon. He had little time to hire cooks because of Haley, business, and traveling back to Samsaville to check on his family. He didn't want to have to explain to an outsider why he wanted his meat rare. "One of Tracker's girlfriends," he murmured, before placing his key in the lock and opening the door. "I can't blame him. He's young and not quite a yearling." He had promised his mother, Adrian, that he would take care of him because of his lack of experience in the world and with females. Hunter thought of his first kiss at that moment. He had time to think about his first sexual encounter with Katie and his first night with Haley. He smiled and stepped into his foyer. Another door opened into an expansive living area with a soaring ceiling, 2 chandeliers, chrome and glass tables, and muted velvet chairs and sofas. A large modern chandelier hung over his dining room table. The table was more a disguise in case he had humans over. These were decorations he never used. "I guess Tracker will get better use out of them," he thought, smiling to himself. Walking through the house to the kitchen, he spotted Tracker at the kitchen aisle. The young woman's back was turned to him. Tracker left the aisle and walked up behind her. She was cooking specially for him. Tracker extended his long arms around her. His long fingers tickled her neck. She grabbed one of his hands and kissed it as he held her by the shoulder. Hunter could smell the lust he had for the young woman. Hunter smiled. Tracker was close behind her and leant against her. She pushed him off but never turned around. Tracker slid her hair to the side. Her hair was long, and he trailed kisses down her shoulder, and then he turned quickly. Tracker's keen werewolf instincts alerted him that someone was looking at them. He didn't turn around or away. He knew it was Hunter. The girl was dropping a large bloody steak from a skillet to a platter. She shifted her body from side to side. Tracker shifted with her. She turned around with a wide smile to lean lightly into him. He was close to her. She looked past him and up and stood still. She was familiar to Hunter. She was beautiful, and she was Haley. Haley smiled, and then her smile dropped like a happy face with a frown. Tracker walked over to Hunter. "What are you doing here?" His tone was filled with warmth and concern. "I thought you would be in Samsaville, trying to decide whether you would join Devin and Katie." Hunter's eyes turned a dark blue. Sweat beaded on his forehead, even though it was cool inside. "Oh, sorry, Hunter, this is my girl Haley." "Haley, this is Ma." I know who he is. Your brother Hunter, Haley said, her tone dry and her voice cool. She stood there gazing a long while at Hunter. Their eyes locked. He was absolutely visibly upset. We've met, Hunter said, his voice hard, but there were clear cracks in his tone. He looked at her, then turned away and marched to his bedroom. I don't know why he's so moody, Tracker said, loud enough for Hunter to hear. I do. It's a long story, and I can't discuss it with you now. Eat your steak. It's just the way you like it. She laughed and shot him a wink, then kissed him on the cheek. I'll be back shortly, and I'll tell you all about it. Tracker held her hand and then released it, eager to get to the steak.